Hello all, welcome back to Financial Freedom and Odyssey.com. My name is Mark and I'm here with another video. Today I'm going to quickly dive through my thoughts and do a quick little review of The Wealthy Barber. Now, The Wealthy Barber is the third book that I've read and written a short review slash my thoughts so far. If you're interested, I did one on The Income Factory. So this is one of the OGs in the high income, right? Like high distribution over growth. So yeah, one of the OGs in that space. And I read this on vacation, and you can see it here. So it's by Stephen Bavaria. And if I go back here, the first one that I read in this space, it was actually an audiobook, so I listened to, and that's The Millionaire Next Door. And yeah, it was interesting. It was more of like a few short stories, and it just kind of dove into essentially just different situations, people with vastly different jobs, and a lot of surprising insight and facts that I wouldn't have guessed. So yeah, today we're going to focus, like I said, on The Wealthy Barber, and let's dive right in. So first off, picking this book, I didn't have a warm trip down south. So like I teased out earlier, the last two books that I did revolved around trips that we made. Just could easily read something in the airport, on the plane, or while relaxing on the beach. So yeah, I decided to go with another book in the financial circles, and that is The Wealthy Barber. And luckily, it is available to Spotify Premium members on Spotify. So that's another subscription fee rationalization for myself, as per why I should continue paying Spotify and for a family plan. But anyways, diving into my thoughts. Starting out, yeah, I just thought I really related with the author on many levels. Now, this is a bit of an older book, but he's slightly younger than I am currently in the book. Had a little bit different upbringing, but in some ways quite a bit the same. Um, but yeah, like one of the things that he called out is that his parents didn't teach the concept of financial literacy. I was lucky; my parents did, outside of investing. So neither one of my parents had a particular interest in investment, but they knew the importance of saving and keeping expenses low and that sort of thing. So I picked up a lot of good habits from my parents in that regard. And in the book, he said that he started at age 28. So that's great. That's still quite early. So, starting in your 30s, tons of time for the magic of compounding to occur. And when he speaks with his father, who eventually sets him on this path, which we'll dive into, his father said that, yeah, he was in luck. He found the perfect person, the perfect teacher, and he just found them 6 years ago. One cool thing to like, not cool thing, but an interesting thing to mention, and whenever I have chats with family members or friends who are in a, let's say, older generation than I am, a lot of them do have pension plans or kind of have more trust in maybe the government provided, whether that's CPP or old age security and that sort of thing. And as you know, they just don't pay enough now, right? And in terms of the private pension plans, you just don't see them very often. So all that falls into yourself, and you have to take charge. Again, this is another average normal person coming into Wall Story. I love, like, yeah, I just love these stories. It's interesting. So if I jump back to the books that I referred to at the start, One Millionaire Next Door talks at one point about this guy, and I think he runs a janitorial service or a cleaning service or something like that, and he lives in this very affluent neighborhood. but he drives like his work truck home and parks it in his driveway at his house. And there's some neighbors who kind of comment like, oh, I wish he wouldn't do that. He's like devaluing our property and all this sort of stuff. And anyways, it turns out that he was actually the most wealthy person on the block. You just wouldn't know it. And I just love that story. I love those stories. I love the subtle wealthy. And just, yeah, I have a lot of appreciation for it. So, as you may have already guessed, the person that the father found to set him on the right path is the wealthy barber. So, yeah, the father says, you wouldn't believe it. You have to go down to the barber shop and talk to the barber, and he will get you on the right path. And the author plus sister and best friend, they go down to the barber shop for 12 months, and each 12 months they learn a new step of the process, and each session they're given homework. Sometimes homework is like kind of research, other times it's like, go and ensure you have insurance for XYZ purpose and stuff like that, and they have to bring it back before and get it approved, let's say, before they get the next piece of information, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I think it's unlike the Millionaire Next Door, where we just kind of heard a lot of stats and small anecdotes and that sort of thing. This one sure has a few quotes, anecdotes, but it just focuses on the journey of someone who just is willing to become financially independent, financially literate, which is great. So a couple things that stuck with me was the concept of this hair truck. So early on in his career, the barber bought an old truck, installed a magazine rack. So I think it was like an old delivery van, if I remember correctly, and a barber chair. And after he did this, he would close up shop on Tuesdays, which was like his worst day of the month, I believe, in terms of like foot traffic or bookings. So he just closed on that day, and then he drove his truck and parked it in the factory parking lot, and would just cut hair on lunch hour or break time and that sort of stuff for workers, or before or after the shift. And it ended up becoming his most profitable day. So then he ended up hiring a barber just to work from this truck, and he covered the Wednesday shift there, which I thought was pretty cool. This one was a difference in individual like tax situation budgets and that sort of thing versus businesses. So a business only needs to budget for necessities, where an individual needs to budget for needs and wants on top of necessities, right? So if you think about it, when you were a kid and going into like adolescence and teenage years and you wanted a job, chances are you wanted the job for money for some reason, right? Like maybe you wanted to be able to go out with your friends and do whatever you wanted. Maybe you wanted to buy music or video games or what have you. Like those are wants, not necessities or needs. It's just your wants become your needs. So as soon as you realize that, the better. The good old pay yourself first pops up in this book. That was in both of the other books, I believe. It's also in Rich Dad Poor Dad is the first time that I heard this, which I read many, many years ago now. But it's a concept of ensuring that you can allocate however much money to each investment plan or savings account first, and then figure out how you pay the rest. The golden rule is the next one, and that was if you can simply save 10% of your income, that alone is 50% of what you need to ensure you become wealthy. Now that assumes that you are avoiding that in something that's stable and has good growth, like the S&P 500. This one is kind of cool too. Stockbrokers are typically salespeople. Stockbrokers are typically salespeople that simply sell stocks, like when they sell shoes. In a lot of cases, they likely know more than you do. And then the follow up to that one is, if brokers could make a ton of money from trading, then they wouldn't actually need you as a client. They would just spend 100% of their effort on their own accounts. There's a lot into insurance. I'm not going to dive into that too much, um, especially because, yeah, it's a really nuanced topic that I don't know a ton about. I did jot some notes down this, so you can go and check out on the blog site if you want to read them or pause the video there. Um, but yeah, inflation is a retirement killer. I don't think that's news to anyone. And this one, just another one, they went into like the statistics of social support, which I think is the same in the US and Canada. Essentially, we have an aging population. The ratio of people paying into the system versus the people taking out of the system is starting to tip in not a good way. So hope they can invest it well. Home ownership is the best forced savings plan there is. Yeah, I've heard this one before too. It's the idea of if you have to like save, especially in like accounts that you don't have penalties for using the money, right? Like the TFSA. A lot of people say, well, put money in the TFSA, then you can take it out, and if you're undisciplined, then you'll save it, and you might spend it on something dumb, you know. So part of the home ownership is two ways, right? It's like that forced savings account that you just have to do it, and then eventually, once you get it paid off, you have this thing that's hopefully worth a lot more money, which in the vast majority of cases is true. And then the other piece to that, right, is that it is, I believe, still the cheapest form of leverage that you can get. And this one, I've heard variations of this, but from the book is $1 saved is $2 earned. So the rationale here is if you got a $2 bonus at work, well, after your deductions, you have $1 and change left, right? So if you had to get $1 take home, you would have to earn $2 less taxes and other deductions, right? So that's more or less what they're getting at here. And yeah, those are the main things I wanted to call out. I don't want to give too many of the spoilers into like the actual chapters. I highly encourage you to read the book. Yeah, I just had a few thoughts here. So it was highly engaging, informative, and I did laugh quite a few times actually. As I've noted here, as I was shopping just around the corner from my place, and I burst out laughing. I got a couple looks, at least one. I think there was 2 looks, and then, anyways, I shrugged it off. I'm okay with being awkward. Being awkward does not bother me one bit. And out of those 3 books, then I spoke about at the start, so being this one, The Wealthy Barber, A Millionaire Next Door, and The Income Factory, I think, this one was my favorite. Mostly because it was that kind of entire wholesome story, had some comedy in it, and I would definitely recommend this book to anyone in their late teens or older. At the tail end of the book, I guess the epilogue on the Spotify audiobook, it mentioned 2 others, which is The Truth About Money and The Warren Buffett Way. Yeah, would love to hear your takes on this, so feel free to leave it in the comments or send me a comment on Blossom. But yeah, if you've read either of these 2 books or the other 3 books that I talked about, would love to hear from you, thoughts, opinions, that sort of thing. And I guess I could do a little teaser here. I've already started The Warren Buffett Way, so I'll probably do a review and potentially a video on that one as well. Take care. Cheers.